According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 26% of Caddo Parish lives in poverty. We all know that earning a college degree provides upward mobility, economic stability, and increased lifetime earning potential. Therefore, providing quality instruction for all students is my goal as an educator. I want young people, no matter what their background, to develop the analytic skills, writing skills, and foundational knowledge to be successful in college. With a score of 3 or higher on the AP US History exam, each year over 80% of my students receive college credit. With these results, students have a head start towards a fruitful college experience. Each fall, I spend many hours advising and writing recommendations for students. Many of these recommendations are for individuals aiming not just for admittance to college, but for a full academic scholarship. Since I've taught for many years, I've been able to see how young people, given the proper skills and education, can go on to successful careers. For example, one of my former AP students, who came from a disadvantaged background, is now a tenured professor at the University of Texas, Austin. Another young person who immigrated from Nicaragua is now a physician in Little Rock. Currently, 3 low-income students have full scholarships to Rice University, and another is at Yale University. Their future, as well as others, is bright. While I know I did not make each of these individuals successful, I like to think that the encouragement and education provided both in my classroom and at Caddo Magnet High contributed in a positive manner. Through my work, I hope to make a positive impact on the lives of my students. The students you will see today are in a gifted and talented advanced placement U.S. History class. They are all in 11th grade. Since this is an AP course, I use the College Board's AP curriculum, and I incorporate Louisiana standards once we pass the Civil War. For the past several weeks, the students have been studying the age of Jackson. Based on the College Board's AP U.S. History learning objectives, the students have been exploring and studying the following. 1. The context in which the Republic developed from 1800 to 1848. 2. The causes and effects of continuing policy debates about the role of the federal government from 1800 to 1848. And 3. How geographic and environmental factors shaped the development of the South from 1800 to 1848. In previous lessons leading up to today's trial of Andrew Jackson, the students did the following. They watched and annotated a Nearpod lesson on Andrew Jackson and his contributions. They read an article about Andrew Jackson and the Cherokee Indians. They analyzed primary sources from Andrew Jackson, John Calhoun, and Daniel Webster to draw conclusions.
In this document.
Yeah, and some good quotes we got from this document is that he said that this was the people's constitution, the people's government, which is why nullification wasn't really the best course of action because, again, the people of the United States made the Constitution, drafted these laws.
Exactly. And you can see like in the historical situation of all this, like with the Webster-Hayne debates, and the Andrew Jackson making his statement about how the Union must be preserved.
I think one good quote was like liberty and union, now and forever, or one and inseparable. So that was
So that was one side of the argument of the.
And they wrote an essay responding to the following prompt. To what extent did Andrew Jackson abuse his power? Consider the following: economic policy, American Indians, and nullification crisis. As a culminating activity, the students will take what they have learned in this unit and place Andrew Jackson on trial. Based on Louisiana Student Standards, Historical Thinking Skills 1.3, the students will propose and defend a specific point of view on a historical issue and provide supporting evidence to justify that position. The purpose of this assignment is to have the students more deeply understand the issues of nullification, the National Bank and Native Americans, and the power of Jackson during this era. All students will use higher level thinking skills as they take on their assigned role. Some students will portray prosecutor and defense attorneys. Other students will play witness roles. All students will participate as an attorney or a witness. The witnesses are Andrew Jackson, John Calhoun, Henry Clay, and Robert Hayne. Today you will see the students as they prepare for the trial and then watch part of the opening statements and part of the direct examination and cross-examination of Andrew Jackson. We are using Cato Magnet's courtroom for this culminating lesson.
Now proceed.
Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. May it please the court. Members of the jury, opposing counsel, and your honor. My name is Raj Lechman, and along with my co-counsel, we represent the American people. Now, the man sitting right there is President Andrew Jackson. He abused his power on more than 3 counts, but I'm going to talk about 3 today. The first is he engaged in the spoil system, a system which members are not appointed based on merit, but they're based on private relations with the president. Now, secondly, President Jackson passed the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Now, he did this by going against a Supreme Court decision that stated that Georgia had no bearing on the lands of the Cherokee Nation. And lastly, President Jackson vetoed more bills than any of the 6 preceding presidents combined. Now, for these reasons, President Jackson overstepped his bounds as president to display his power and prestige. So at the end of today's trial, the prosecution is going to ask you to deliver a verdict of guilty. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I please the court. Good afternoon, members of the jury, opposing counsel, and Your Honor. Now, Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, was above all a protector of the common man. And in 3 ways. First, he brought with him to office the ideals of Jacksonian democracy, and it was during his presidency that all white males began to gain suffrage. And he saw the National Bank as a way for rich and foreign powers to get richer. And so by vetoing the 3rd National Bank, he sought to protect the common man and uphold the values of the Constitution. And using his vetoing power, he set the precedent for future presidents to properly exercise their executive privileges. And lastly, he passed the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which he recognized as the only way to preserve Native American heritage from the pressures of white settlers. And for these reasons, Andrew Jackson was a protector of the common man. And at the end of the trial, we, the defense, ask that you deliver a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I like that each of you had different things that you were pointing out about Andrew Jackson. Now, don't forget that the question here is, did he abuse his power or not? So yes, he's representing the common man, but you may want to come back and say he did not abuse his power and was totally within his right. Okay? Let's see what we've got in terms of a direct examination of Andrew Jackson.
Can you please state your name and position for the court?
I am the one and only Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States.
Now, President Jackson, can you briefly describe your accomplishments before becoming president?
I was a bold frontiersman, a renowned hero of the War of 1812, and one of humble origins.
Now, President Jackson, as the first Southern president, what were some of your goals in becoming president?
As I said before, I was a man of humble origins, so I am by the common people, for the common people, wishing to expand democracy for all of the poor people, as mentioned earlier with the suffrage for all white males.
President Jackson, what were your intentions with the signing of the Indian Removal Act of 1830?
My intentions were to protect the Native Americans, as the budding growth of white settlers could have infringed upon their land, and so I wished to grant them new lands where they could live a life peaceful and free from our toil.
And President Jackson, what problems did you see with the Bank of the United States that prompted you to veto it?
I saw it as a harsh manipulation of the lower class by the upper class to exploit money from them and keep them in their lowly state.
And finally, President Jackson, can you please describe how you handled the nullification crisis?
I handled the nullification crisis by preventing a war. As I stated, the Union must be preserved, and I worked in favor of federal government.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're going to stay put? Thank you. Is there a cross-examination of this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
President Jackson, did you authorize the Indian Removal Act and forcefully relocate thousands of Native Americans west of the Mississippi River?
Yes, I did enforce the Removal Act, but it was not forcibly. And might I say, you were one of the people who was hateful of the Native Americans and called them savages.
And were you also the man who hated Native Americans and called them savages?
I was not, no.
Okay, now I want to move on here and talk about your involvement in the spoils system. Would you agree that the spoils system is a corrupt and unethical way of appointing cabinet members?
I would agree with that, yes.
And that it's a means of electing cabinet members based on your own personal relations with them instead of merit?
Yes.
Okay, pause right there. Okay, so Andrew Jackson doesn't need to agree with that, right? You're going to say, of course they're great folks, right? And also, I think you did. What was the quote that you had there? You had about savages.
Oh, that he was the man who hated Native Americans and called them savages?
Okay, so here's what would you say to that? So you did call them savages, right? So you do have to admit to that, but you can say, what else, can anybody else in the group tell me, what else could he say about the Native Americans to defend himself here?
I think I can rewording of it.
Okay, rewording of it? Okay, yeah.
You could talk about how in his inaugural address that he didn't want to hurt or forcibly remove the Native Americans.
Okay, he was hoping that they would do it in a voluntary manner, weren't they? Not being forced. So while you signed the Indian Removal Act, you were hoping that it would all be voluntary. And remember too, under which president is that Trail of Tears where the forcible removal happens?
Martin Van Buren.
Martin Van Buren or Martin Van Ruin. So you want to be sure that we get that out with it. What were you going to say?
I was going to say how he could mention it might have to do with his upbringing, because in school Jackson was taught that Native Americans attack colonists for no reason.
Okay, yes. Now here's something you may not know. Andrew Jackson raised an orphaned Native American as his own. He lived to be maybe about 18 years old or so. So he's a man full of contradictions. So what you want to do, Natalie, with this is you want to do leading questions. So those last few were leading. So isn't it true that you call them savages? Isn't it, so you want to kind of lead them on cross-examination, and you don't want to roll over because you're a fighter. And you're going to tell the truth, but you're going to say, of course these people were not, incompetent that I've appointed. They were great people. They might have been my friends, but they were very good folks, right? So, okay, let's try that. My objectives in the trial of Andrew Jackson were for students to better understand the complex issues of nullification, the National Bank, and American Indians during the presidency of Andrew Jackson. They were also to propose and defend a specific point of view on a historic issue and provide supporting evidence to justify that position. If I were to do something differently next time, I would do the following. 1, I would assign and conduct the trial of Andrew Jackson before the students write their essay. What I found was that as the students worked through the prosecution of Andrew Jackson and the other witnesses, they had some misconceptions about the presidency and contributions that needed to be clarified. If I'd have conducted the trial before the essays themselves would have been much more accurate, more persuasive, and simply better. However, the students enjoyed engaging in this creative format, and I will certainly do it again. Maybe in the spring we'll put Franklin Roosevelt on trial. After teaching the segment in this video, I plan to debrief the students about the lesson. I will ask them what they learned and what they enjoyed. I will also ask them for suggestions for next time if I do this activity. Thank you for considering my application for Teacher of the Year. I'm honored to be considered. Thanks.